Isn't it wonderful that this is the one program that Joe Biden watches? Just absolutely unhinged. China controls YouTube. Qatar controls the kids' minds, because Alge's asshole has to say.
Everybody know what I'm about to talk to you about happened before October 7th. I'm going to talk about radicalism on college campuses. Sort of radicalism that has mainstream students getting propaganda, whether it's from their professors or whether it's from communist Chinese government through TikTok.
How is this any different than literally Fox News? Is a question I am going to keep asking myself over and over again. How is Morning Joe any different?
TikTok calling the President of the United States Genocide Joe, calling you and President Clinton war criminals, actually stopping the naming of a building after Madeleine Albright because they claim, professors claim, some of the same professors that took part in the most radical elements of the protests over the past couple of weeks, called Madeleine Albright a war criminal. And we're still waiting for the building for Foreign Service to be renamed after Madeleine Albright. Here we have First Secretary of State.
Bro, what are you talking about? She's a fucking war criminal who literally said 500,000 dead Iraqis as a consequence of sanctions that her fucking husband put in place, by the way. Oh, you're literally talking to another fucking war criminal ass psychopath about another war criminal ass psychopath. Madeleine Albright famously fucking said 500,000 dead Iraqi children is just the cost of doing business. She was directly asked, the sanctions that we are placing on Iraq, has led to 500,000 dead Iraqi children, to which her response was, that's the cost of doing business. Okay? He's asking a war criminal to defend another war criminal. Yup. For what it's worth, Hillary's been championing Zionist policy in Habsburg for decades. She zealously urged towards the Jerusalem embassy move in the 90s. You are correct.
This woman made history, just like you made history. But you've got...
Doing war crimes. Doing war crimes, Joe. Made history doing war crimes. We came, we saw, he died.
Mainstream college students, I know, because I've talked to a lot of college students over the past year or two, and they have this radicalized view of the Middle East, a radicalized view of American public.
Why aren't these children just as rabidly Islamophobic as we are? What is going on? Why aren't these kids just as Islamophobic as we are? How are we losing sight of the expert propagandizing that we once were committed to? I don't know, man. Maybe because all of these kids that you're talking about were born after 9/11 and they didn't actually develop a fucking consciousness in that time frame where they were also just as rabidly Islamophobic and just kind of saw that as like background noise, especially the many L's that America took post 9/11. Maybe that's the reason why they're not as feverish, you fucking monster. Oh my God, I hate these fucking scumbags so much. How do we get these kids to be just as racist? Please, Hillary, please give me the take here. I need to understand.
Public servants like yourself, Madeleine Albright, President Clinton, Joe Biden.
Why are these children and these kids and these college students saying like relentless baby murder is not permissible? I hate that. We got to get this fucking TikTok shit out of here.
Can name Republican presidents as well. And there's this radicalization. And I just want to know, first of all, it's distressing. What do we do about it? So public servants aren't taught that American leaders are war criminals and that Joe Biden's not Genocide Joe.
He's literally mad that, like, younger generations have the correct view. All of these fucking screechings of the media class about issues such as this one, by the way, are basically going against the spirit of democracy, right? They talk a big game about how they love free speech and how they love discourse and how discourse should thrive in a normal functioning democracy. And then they literally turn around and they're just fucking mad that the kids are correct. Why are they calling our presidents war criminals? What happened? What happened to America? We used to be a nation. I don't know, bitch. Maybe you should give people something to be proud of, and then maybe they'll be more proud of America's accomplishments. It's ridiculous. Kids these days, the next generation, and my generation as well, have nothing to fucking look forward to. Why the fuck should they be proud of America? For some, like, all we have seen in our development is endless and senseless death and destruction overseas, and the inevitable consequence of said senseless death and destruction. No fucking money in the banana stand for healthcare, the roads, education. No public transit. Life is getting more and more costly, more expensive. No dream of being able to fucking own a home or be able to retire at a reasonable age. No sense of autonomy. No sense of security. Why aren't these kids actually fucking why aren't these kids dick riding America? They can get their burgers. It's like, dude, what the fuck have you given us? What has your generation given us to be proud of? Nothing. Nothing. Why the fuck should they be proud? You're mad that they're not dumbasses like your fucking freak-ass generation was. Why aren't these kids more lead poisoned like our generation is, and more aggressive and more violent and stupid? I can't believe it. I can't believe they're seeing the truth of the American project for what it is. Just a bunch of different corporations with imperial ambitions of global dominance that does not reflect positively in the in-group either.
Quite the opposite. And secondly, the stupidity of the slogans that ignore all the history since 1948 about what the United States has tried to do, about what you...
Yeah, this is funny. Why are the children saying war crimes are bad? Chinese communist propaganda. And not repeating State Department talking points, which of course is not propaganda.
...tried to do, about what President Clinton tried to do in bringing a two-state solution about. I remember when you talked about a two-state solution and it was considered radical. They couldn't believe, oh my God, Hillary Clinton actually is talking about a two-state solution. She hates Israel. And that,
by the way, what a question. 2 minutes and 27 seconds of Joe just sucking the dick of the American State Department. Hillary Clinton's dick as well. Hey, Kaya, come here. Kaya, come here. Baby, place. Place. Good baby. Good baby. I'll give you a gift.
now that's been flipped to you're a war criminal, not a criminal. Bill Clinton's a war criminal. Joe Biden. It's disgusting. And I want you to tell us what needs to be done, what you would hope would be done, one. Number two, how do we get Madeleine Albright's name on that building? Because she's been slandered in death. She's been slandered in death. A public servant who escaped the Holocaust, gave her entire life to the United States of America, and has been slandered in death by extremists, I'm sorry, funded by Qatar. And number three, I told you we were moving past therapy session. And number three, maybe this will get on YouTube if the communist Chinese will allow it to get on YouTube. Please tell any students watching what President Clinton and you put together in 2000 in the
Dude. This is literally Morning Joe is just straight up Fox News, dude. Straight up Fox News. Isn't it wonderful that this is the one program that Joe Biden watches? Just absolutely unhinged. China controls YouTube. Qatar controls the kids' minds because Al Jazeera. Holy fuck. Bro, these are the same fucking scumbags, okay, that will, in the inevitable turn, when Donald Trump does become president of our glorious nation, okay, will turn around and be like, why are you guys doing conspiracy theories? Remember those fucking ads from like early 2016, 2017, 2018, like New York Times would do ads like, this is an apple, but some people think it's an orange, but it's actually an apple. This is why truth matters. Meanwhile, this is what the liberal media has become under the Brandon regime. Remember, MSNBC is supposed to be the liberal version of Fox News. Okay? Cuckold joke, slobbing up genocide Joe, and praising mass grave Madeline / atrocity Albright. It's ironic that Hillary is sitting there with Joe Scarborough, the former representative who voted to impeach her husband, Bill Clinton. You shouldn't have gotten that sloppy toppy. Misogynistic and anti-Semitic, huh? You have to try harder to get me to actually read your message and serve a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. You cannot come in here as a gray name and say misogynistic and anti-Semitic literally 5 minutes prior to the top of the fucking hour, thinking that I'm not going to catch your bait and parry it back to you. Okay? Because at the top of the hour, we are no longer demanding weak baits. We want strong baits. Okay? Don't hit me with those two-parters, man. You can't do that. Yeah, I got the Iron Dome, baby. The way I'm fucking deflecting. I got the Tamir Interceptors out today. Okay? I got the Tamir Interceptor rockets out today. Deflecting non-stop at the top of the hour. And if you want an Iron Dome style defense system against the 3-minute ad breaks at the top of the hour, all you need to do is subscribe. You don't need to, give $10 billion every year to the apartheid regime like Barack Obama did. Okay? Or no, $4 billion every year for 10 years like Barack Obama did. You can just do it for $5 a month or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub if you're lucky. Yardley Fudge Rounds. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. The amount of hate in my heart that I have for these two fucking figures is probably not good.
Oslo Accords. You gave the Palestinians a pathway to peace, and they were scared to take it because they knew they would be slaughtered by Hamas.
Wow.
That's so funny that this ahistorical nonsense is still being repeated by Morning Joe, even though I've showed on this broadcast time and time again how hard he got fucking owned by Zbigniew Brzezinski, his father-in-law, on this exact issue. I'm not going to do it again, as I've shown you time and time again. That's a 4-minute. That is 4 minutes of sloppy toppy gawk guac 3000 Suckmaster 11 that you just saw from Joe Scarborough. Okay? Holy fuck, dude. That boy could suck the chrome out of the tailpipe. He's got a mouth that won't quit. He's got the spirit, dude. Hillary getting back at Bill with this incredible amount of public dome that she's receiving. Maybe not in the Oval Office, but at least in front of many, many Americans on Morning Joe, including Joe Brandon. Certified throat goat. Yeah, shit's looking like the oral office right now. Joe would put Nancy Reagan to shame. Suck start a leaf blower. Yeah, that's a good one. Time out, big man. Dude, that was literally 4 minutes of the most unregulated, unrestricted dick suck session I've ever seen in my entire life. Holy moly. She said, wow. She's like, I'm out of words. I've never seen somebody suck me off this fucking hard.
Oh, I don't know where to start, Joe, but you
go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I need help.
Well, I want to make a couple of quick points because you raised, things that, need to be vented about. First of all, I have had many conversations, as you have had, with a lot of young people over the last many months now. And you're right. They don't know very much at all about the history of the...
Yeah, in the process of sucking their spinal cord fluid, okay, to ensure that me and my pedophilic vampire husband remain alive to see the continuation of the Israeli apartheid ethnic cleansing campaign. We were talking to them before we killed them and sucked the spinal fluid directly out of their spine, straight to the goddamn dome for that delicious adrenochrome. Talk to them.
The Middle East, or frankly about history in many areas of the world, including in our own country. But with respect to the Middle East, they don't know that under the bringing together of the Israelis and the Palestinians by my husband, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the then head of the Palestinian.
Literally cuts off a valid point that young people aren't doing their part in researching Israel-Palestine. Keep cooking, bro. Brother, every single thing that Joe Scarborough mentioned in his Guac Guac 3000 session has literally been dismantled apart, as I correctly pointed to, by Joe Scarborough's father-in-law on the Morning Joe program literally 20 fucking years ago. What the hell are you talking about? Hillary's not making an important point here by saying many young people don't know what's going on about Israel-Palestine. No, dumbass. What she's saying there is if young people learn the talking points, perhaps then they could say that ongoing ethnic cleansing is actually complicated. Okay? That's it. It's not a complex situation morally. That's so cool that you think I'm like terrified of one of the worst politicians in contemporary American history. She is literally a genuine burden to the causes that she is aligned with. She is her own worst enemy. That's why I always laugh whenever the Democratic Party rolls her out to say anything, really. If Hillary Clinton came out against health care for all, okay, there would be probably more fucking people pro Medicare for all than there currently are. She lost to Donald Trump. No, I'm not going to run the Brzezinski video one more time, okay?
Of the Israelis and the Palestinians by my husband, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the then head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, then the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat. An offer was made to the Palestinians for a state on 96% of the existing territory occupied by the Palestinians.
By the way, fun fact. Eğer sıcaklarsa, soğuk değillerse koymana gerek yok yer yoksa. Bu arada gelmek üzere tavuk. Hatta şu anda geliyor. İki dakika sonra.
Palestinians with 4% of Israel to be given to reach 100% of the amount of territory that was hoped for. And this offer was made, and if Yasser Arafat had accepted it, there would have been a Palestinian state now for about 24 years. It's one of the great tragedies of history that he was unable to say yes. My husband has a book coming out later this year, Joe, in which he talks about.
Don't think you're scared of arguing against her, but you don't think a significant amount of younger voters refusing to vote over Israel-Palestine is indicative of not understanding what someone like Trump would do in office? You and I do not see the world in the same exact ways. If you have this kind of attitude, you think that the Democratic Party is entitled to people's votes. I do not, because I actually understand how politics works. You, on the other hand, are a relentless dick rider of the Democratic Party who believes they are entitled to people's votes because of lesser evil voting. Whether I agree with lesser evil voting or not doesn't matter, because Americans demonstrably do not vote on lesser evil voting margins. They do not care about lesser evil voting. That is why the plurality in this country historically doesn't vote for either party. The plurality of eligible voters in this country does not vote for either party. Now, obviously, this is a more complicated situation than simply not having like a decent partner, a decent elected representative to vote for. However, that is a major part of the problem. If the Democratic Party genuinely made efforts to capture broader swaths of the voter-eligible population while simultaneously opening up easier ways of voting, right, against the Republican efforts to stop people from voting, especially poor people and young people, people of color in general, then perhaps they would have an easier time with these elections. They should have an easier time with it. The problem on this issue, however, as far as like Israel-Palestine goes, and you are talking to someone who has, of course, laid a big amount of the blame in Trump administration's mishandling of Israel-Palestine, okay, especially for October 7, but one that also recognizes that we currently don't have Donald Trump in office. We currently have Joe Biden in office. And Joe Biden, perhaps also channeling that same exact idiotic sentiment that many Democratic wonks channel, that like people should of course vote for us. We're not bad as the other guys. Duh. You should do a little bit of reading, sweetie, and learn that like Trump would be so much worse. Don't recognize that Joe Biden is pretty fucking awful right now, and he shouldn't be awful, just in an effort to show Americans that, yeah, it is actually different under a Democratic administration in comparison to a Republican one. Because the very same bullshit that did happen under the Republican administration of Donald Trump, especially against like protesters that were taking it to the streets hold on one second. Doors open. Doors open. Baba! Geldi tavuk. Anyway, Joe Biden is repeating the exact same bullshit that the Trump administration Joe Biden is repeating the exact same bullshit that the Trump administration did in an effort to stop people from protesting against Israel right now. Peaceful protesters all around the country are getting fucking brutalized by the police for the crime of peacefully declaring Israel an apartheid regime and criticizing our involvement in Israel's apartheid and also Israel's current ethnic cleansing campaign. The idea that voters are going to think critically beyond this and go, you know what? This administration that keeps telling me that like they are better than the Trump administration, that completely adopted the Trump administration's very own right-wing white nativist immigration policies, that also was engaging in the same kind of suppression of free speech and public demonstration, this time for the crime of saying we should not have Never again means never again. We should not have blood in our hands. Palestinian children's blood in our hands specifically. Why the fuck are we funding and facilitating this ethnic cleansing campaign? Those people getting violently and brutally suppressed by the police in a direct... Baba? Kapı. Bence çıkamadı. Şeyi söyle. Button'a bassın. Yeah, those people should turn around and just simply vote for the Democratic Party, because like we promised that the Democratic Party is going to be better. Whoa, sorry, last thing, because I heard you say it. Joe Biden's office has the same immigration policies as Trump. Joe Biden, I don't know if you've been hiding under a rock or something, or maybe you came out of a coma literally yesterday, but Joe Biden pushed a right-wing white nativist immigration policy that would continue Donald Trump's wall, and also on top of that would give more than 20 billion, even more than 20 billion, I believe, but at least $20 billion to the Border Patrol to harden border security. Joe Biden was the one who was pushing that legislation, although it was, not exactly popular, and it actually hurt his chances against Donald Trump further by basically reaffirming Donald Trump's commitment to his anti-immigrant sentiment and justifying why he has such anti-immigrant sentiments to begin with. He did. Joe Biden's last Border Patrol bill that didn't pass through Congress as a consequence of Trump standing against it because he wants to use it as a political tool, directly would have contributed to the white nativist anti-immigrant sentiment that the Trump administration pushed, last time they were running for president. I did say that because it's true. You might not want to recognize it, or maybe, perhaps, if I'm being charitable, you were oblivious to the goddamn reality of the matter, but that is what happened.
About how Arafat kept saying he intended to agree, he wanted to agree, but he was, as you rightly point out, pretty sure he'd be killed because, Sadat was killed by extremists when he made peace with Israel. Our dear, dear friend, Yitzhak Rabin, was killed by a radical Israeli when he was pursuing the two-state solution. So
96% is a made-up number. I'm going to fucking lose it. That was Tabah, not Camp David. Israel quit Tabah, not Arafat. She's also getting her numbers wrong. The final best Israeli offer at Tabah was 6% annexation with less than 1-to-1 land swaps. But that's besides the point. Funnily enough, the Palestinians suggested that the map include 95% of the West Bank as a middle point of the Clinton parameters, but Israel refused. Not only that, but there were certain aspects of the conversation that was presented by the Israeli side that were complete non-starters. Ridiculous. Permanent annexation of Jerusalem, which, by the way, this fucking dipshit has been championing since the 90s, was a understandable non-starter for the Palestinian position, as Arafat correctly pointed to time and time again, saying, I do not have the power to give you Jerusalem. Even if I were to say yes to this ridiculous proposition, I would be murdered and it wouldn't change anything. To which Bill Clinton was like, we'll give you a mansion. Come on, dude. We'll give you a nice little fucking mansion. To which he said, yeah, I'll get murdered before you'll watch me get murdered from said mansion.
So this is a very important piece of history to understand if you're going to take any kind of position with respect to what's going on right now. And there's much more that we could go into, as you say, since 1948, but I mean, you could literally go back thousands of years. The important point I want to emphasize, though, is...
Isn't it easier to move the needle further left with libs in power? Not easy. Yeah, it's so easy right now to move the needle fucking a little bit to the left of like what the right-wing Republican position is. Notice how it hasn't been easy at all? Notice how it hasn't happened? What happened? Oh, Biden will listen to the demands made by the left far better than fucking Donald Trump will. Yeah, dude, totally. That really has happened so far.
Propaganda is not education. Propaganda on whether it's TikTok or in the classroom is actually.
No, I'm not arguing to be contrarian. Truly, two different worldviews, but thanks for responding. My dude, I'm not learning shit from a Twitch stream, and neither are you. Do not pretend watching a stream is research. No, watching a stream is not research. You should do some research, though. There is no true two different worldviews. You are living in an entirely separate planet if you personally believe that Joe Biden's border bill that he was desperately trying to pass, which literally led to lower popularity for him on the issue of the border to begin with, because all it did was basically solidify the position that Republicans were right on the border, treating immigration as a national security problem and not one that is an economic issue directly created that benefits American capital owners, because that's what immigration is at the end of the day. It is not a real national security threat at all, okay? But basically capitulating to the right-wing framing on the issue of the border is fucking insane. It's bad politics and it's bad policy, a double Monty. Okay? The idea that you cannot contend with that and you consider that to be entirely different worldviews means that you're not living in this world that we are all living in. Having said that, however, I do try to make this stream as educational as possible. Educating people on the common talking points, educating people on how silly someone might be when they say things such as Biden's border proposal was very different than Trump's border proposal. It was not. Don't ask me. Ask Joseph Robinette Brandon himself. He literally said so. Your major takeaway from this stream, if nothing else, should be to understand how mainstream media oftentimes does have a biased perspective and under the guise of objective neutrality will offer you an incredibly slanted approach to history. This conversation between Hillary Clinton and Joe Scarborough that you are listening to about the issue of Israel-Palestine, which Hillary Clinton urged people to learn more about, is a perfect demonstration of that. Hillary Clinton is obviously extremely on the side of Israel on the matter and is, in that interest, presenting a false narrative, a false reality under the guise of being the foremost authority on the subject matter. She's just straight up lying about the Camp David Accords right here in front of your eyes. And I am telling you that she's lying, as we have also shown many examples of how she's specifically lying on this issue time and time again on this broadcast. You could just go back to a million different videos that I have made on the subject matter if you would like, or watch the video that will inevitably unfold on my YouTube page after the editors actually cut this segment and place the actual facts after the matter, because that's what they do. I will usually bring forward information to you because I'm pulling it from my brain, and then the editors will go in and find the subsequent information and slap it on top. This is perhaps the reason why when I go on the Iced Coffee podcast, for example, I bring up numbers, I bring up certain facts, okay, in real time, and luckily they will fact check me to show that I was right. Why don't you do that? Wait, what? I do that. I do that. I'm explaining to you how I do that right now. My point is that a more generous offer than this, supposedly generous 96% offer, came from Taba, and that Israelis didn't actually give, was suggested by Arafat, and Israel refused. I can't with these ghouls using Wikipedia level bullshit as if they're spreading the holy fucking gospel. Well, for her, it's different. I don't think she's like learning this stuff from Wikipedia. She was literally there. Her husband was the one making such decisions, and they openly did famously lie about Camp David in the aftermath of Camp David. If you remember, the so-called peace process and the way that it was communicated to the American public by mainstream media has always been incredibly one-sided and full of lies. Okay? And you can see an analog to that right now in mainstream media as the ceasefire conversations are continuing. While the ceasefire conversations are continuing, Hamas has made very reasonable offers to Israel time and time again about a full-blown facilitation of a full-blown ceasefire, cessation of hostilities, even going so far, say if we were to go back to 1967 boundaries, we would literally completely put down our arms. We would have obviously a standing military in a Palestinian state that has sovereignty and autonomy. However, this is never reflected in the media. Even though Biden himself claims that he wants a two-state solution, Israel is the one that says we do not want a two-state solution. Fuck your two-state solution. Benjamin Netanyahu has said so time and time again. You are currently watching that exact same mirror image in front of your eyes unfold every single day. America has to step in. America has to step in and be the big boy in the room and basically cut Israel out of the conversation for a brief moment and facilitate a ceasefire negotiation with Hamas, only to have Israel engage in brinksmanship to say, America, you do not actually have a say in this process. So much so that it has caused America to do something that they've never done before, which is refuse to send new ammo shipments to Israel. How do we get here? Well, all the while this conversation is having, this is a conversation that the American State Department is having with Hamas, all the while this ceasefire negotiations are occurring, every single mouthpiece for the federal government has come out and stated it's Hamas that's actually refusing to bargain with Israel, which is an abject lie. There's no other way that I can address this issue without saying the American State Department, in its communications to the Western world, to the media, is just straight up lying. So it should at least make you a little bit more skeptical and do a little bit more reading on what actually took place in Taba or Camp David Accords. Look at the demands being made by the Palestinian side. Look at how far the Palestinian side got and what they got throughout the so-called peace process. Because all the Palestinians saw on the ground outside of the room that Arafat was in was more settlements, more expansion, more cruelty, more violence. Because the Israeli government, sometimes openly and sometimes without openly mentioning it, basically utilized the peace process to further make a two-state solution impossible. Okay? No matter how much Arafat capitulated, this, of course, created a lot of tension in the Palestinian minds about Arafat. This is why, while he was a phenomenally popular figure in the first Palestinian elections ever conducted, with, American go-ahead, of course, he was unimaginably unpopular by the end. Clinton was sometimes at the Camp David summit, but in July. But you got to remember that was referred to as the Camp David negotiations, or a series of talks already starting in Stockholm in March 2000 and continuing after the summit in January 2001. In the vast majority of the meetings, Clinton, and often the Americans generally, was not present. Clinton clearly got a very distorted view of the talks from ghouls like Dennis Ross. Ultimately, other people that were privy to the conversations have an entirely different assessment of the matter. It's readily available. I don't trust you streamer man who constantly cites sources, investigations, journalists, and history. I trust establishment Democrat white woman.
Actually, the opposite of education. Anybody who is teaching in a university or anyone who is putting content on social media should be held responsible for what they include and what they exclude. And so much of what we're seeing...
We have no idea if Hamas wanted to negotiate because none of us are in the negotiations. It's all second and third hand hearsay. Wait, what? That's not correct. You're wrong. You're just objectively wrong. You want to know why? Because Hamas, every single time they negotiated and every single time they did a call towards Israel that they will put down their arms and whatnot, would also very publicly state their desires. Just because you never heard about it doesn't change the reality that that actually did happen. Not only that it did happen, the argument that I'm making right now isn't whether or not Hamas actually openly declared what their intentions were, because they certainly did. The argument I'm making is the reason why you don't hear about it is because mainstream media doesn't cover it. That doesn't change the reality, however. We don't know if Hamas agreeing to negotiate. We can't assume to have insight into the negotiations is a position that you're assuming because of your lack of knowledge on the matter. That's the sad state of affairs now, because you go, understandably, to mainstream sources and you think you're getting the full scope of the picture. You are not. Why'd you ban him, though? I did not. He's still... I don't do anything beyond show you what all sides of this conflict are saying. Of course, I have my own personal biases in the matter. I do think that it's unconscionable that Israel gets to do an ethnic cleansing campaign on Palestinian children, Palestinian women, Palestinian men, civilians across the board, under the guise that they are actually doing this righteous vengeance campaign against Hamas for October 7.
Particularly on TikTok, about what's going on in the Middle East is woefully false, but it's also incredibly slanted, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel. And it is, not any place where anyone should go to get information about complex matters like what is going on there. So we have to do a much better job in trying to, number one, teach history at all levels. That's why...
Dude, r/atheism guys in the chat are so fucking funny. This is not a holy war, man. Israel was not created under, Israel is not a very religious country, okay? Israel is a Jewish supremacist ethno-state on the boundaries of Judaism being an ethno-religion, not a religious boundary.
I love SUFs because it's about our history. It's a part of history we didn't all study and learn about. But it's also important that we recognize the propaganda value of social media. People are on social media oftentimes to press an agenda, an ideological, a religious, a financial, a political, a partisan agenda. And so, of course, you don't get the facts. Of course, you don't get any kind of context. And we have to do a better job ourselves, and we certainly have to do a better job with young people in trying to help them understand how to filter and interpret the information they're giving. And I think we also need to do a better job in our classrooms, particularly at the college and university level, not to fall into, easy absolutes. You're either this or you're that. You're for, you're against. Life is too complicated. History certainly is. So I agree that we've got to do something to, stand against a lot of these false narratives. And with respect to my dear friend, Madeleine Albright, she deserves to have anything and everything named for her.
Yes.
She lived the 20th century. She fled first from the Nazis, and then after returning to what was Czechoslovakia with her family, she had to flee the Soviet communists. She exemplifies what freedom means. She demonstrates what a great refuge America has been for people seeking freedom. And heaven forbid, if we don't protect this democracy, this Constitution, our values, our institutions against false narratives, against demagogic, wannabe authoritarian leaders, shame on us. But let's not forget people who helped us get to where we are and where I hope we will always be here in this country. And Madeleine Albright was certainly one of those whom I admire greatly.
Bro, it's so funny that they're literally demanding protesters be fucking killed, as Joe has been, while simultaneously fucking saying oh man, the other side are the fascist authoritarians. It's the only difference between you and Donald Trump is that you're just more pro-gay. You're demanding media literacy while decrying that students have perhaps learned too much in a way that is no different than what the right-wing Republicans claim about CRT. Is so fucking stupid.